Art One-on-One with Mr. Burgher.
Welcome to another episode of Art One-on-One. I am your pod boss, Nichole Jordan, alongside your professional artist and master educator, Mr. Burgher.
I'm ready to go today. I hope that you're ready.
I'm always ready.
To feed the information. Our last episode has been doing pretty well. Hopefully we're on a roll with the old episodes. And, it's my birthday week.
Oh, yes. I forgot.
I know.
I didn't forget.
That's why I bring it up. And I think that it's important that, the viewers know where they can send birthday gifts, treats. They can get a message from me on my birthday through cameo.com or whatever. It's a gift from me, but for yourself. That's the best kind of gift. Backwards. That's the best kind of gift.
That makes me think of what is it on? Clark Griswold, where he says the gift that keeps on giving all year long. What was that?
The Jam, Jelly of the Month Club.
Oh yeah, Jelly of the Month Club. Oh my gosh, I think I watched that show.
It's a classic. It's a
classic.
It's a holiday classic.
That and Elf. That's another Christmas
Elf's
movie
a good one. Elf's a little bit more modern day. The National Lampoon's series. I mean, that's old, a little older school.
Right. I'm just saying my favorite movies are on that time.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're still in fall, so I don't know why I'm thinking about that. But yes, how old are you going to be?
102.
Do you not want to tell people your age?
No, I don't want people to know my age.
I don't care how people know my age.
I don't either.
I'm older than you.
People can figure it out. People can. They Google me. Find me on Wikipedia.
Because you're so popular.
Clever. Anywho.
All right, so today we're going to start with Ask the Art Guides.
Ask the Art Guides right out of the chute.
Yeah.
All
back
right.
to our old routine.
Yeah. Ask the Art Guides is our oldest segment on Art One-on-One with Mr. Burgher, where we consult our Art Oracles cards from Lawrence King Publishing. And this week, the card that you have looked at, pulled, there you go,
is Piet Mondrian.
I say Piet Mondrian, but maybe that's wrong. Mondrian, we'll just say Mondrian.
That sounds better. One
of my favorite geometric abstraction painters.
Yeah. We've had this discussion. We've talked about him before.
As a matter of fact, ironically enough, in my art class this week, we started a art project focusing on Mondrian's abstraction.
Well, let's focus on his life.
But let's look at what direction is his wisdom or the card going to pull us in today?
I think I'm going to focus on life. Which is, it says logic should come from the heart, which I think is interesting.
Logic should come from the heart. Yeah.
I mean, looking at he is very, even just looking at his art, it's like logic. Like, it's very to the point.
Yeah.
He just seems like he would be that type of person. Although I don't know that. What is Piet? What is Mondrian like as a person?
There are a few things that I know of him, that I know of his art and his artwork. He was an art educator. He felt that when he broke big into art was the day that he was able to become an art teacher. He wanted to be an artist, and his dad, I believe, was a principal of a school. And his dad was like, if you want to do this art thing, that's cool, but you can't just do the art thing. You got to be a teacher. That's the only way to make it.
Do you think that was a misperception? What's the word I'm looking for?
Misconception.
Misconception? Because I feel like that even to this day, like I have that one shirt that says what's the shirt I got from?
Those that do, and those that can't do, teach.
No, it's all around like artists not being able to make,
stuff.
like starving artists, you know?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that was more of a misconception? Like, just, or were people not really able to make it?
I think that
Being
there
just
are a lot of people, and I would probably say myself included, there are a lot of people that want to be a big-time artist and get paid millions of dollars to make their art and be self-sufficient just making their art. But it's very, very difficult to make it, to pay your bills and all of those things just on an art career. And so in today's
world, it would be a lot easier just because of social media and getting your art out there,
maybe.
I think.
But still, people lean into the academic side of it. Even prominent artists have histories with Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo is a pretty well established name. She was teaching. She was working in an academic sort of
there are
setting.
A lot of artists we've done research on our teachers.
So taking on students. Rembrandt van Rijn, the famous Dutch painter. He had students. You've got, which again, that was during the time when people were apprenticed to become artists. There was no real school setting. But then as time evolves and things go through, many artists will become, in some capacity, involved with an academic institution or something like that. So
art is their side hustle, really?
Well,
for a lot of people.
Art is their, maybe not, I wouldn't necessarily call it a side hustle as much as art is, they're getting a regular paycheck through the academic work, but then they're making additional income on the art that they're selling and marketing. But I guess I think that to me a side hustle is like another thing to get a couple bucks, where I think it's more than a couple bucks.
Well,
just
it's
getting
more
a couple
for
bucks.
Passion because supposedly you don't make very much.
Teachers make buku bucks. So
yes,
anyway,
it's so true. So you picked two great
avenues of
So we're never going to be rich.
Not unless these viewers start bringing in the residual things.
So just looking at his art, he seems like a very logical, not very abstract. Although he did start out in abstract painting, didn't he? Like he started out doing landscapes and things like that in the beginning, or no? Is that abstract?
That would not be abstract.
What is that?
That would be more realistic.
Okay.
More observational sorts of things.
So he started out doing landscapes and things like that.
For sure. He started off doing landscapes and various things like that, and portraits and your typical art thing. And they say, I don't know if this is true or not, but the story is that he started by breaking down a tree. He was painting a tree. And there's a particular work of his, of a particular tree, and you can very much see that he's trying to break that down into more simplified geometric shapes. And he took that idea and he compounded it and compounded it and compounded it until he got to this very distinct black line outlined style of rectangles and squares that were simplified, primary, sometimes secondary colors, and eventually he would, in his last pieces, he would lose the black lines and just focus on the squares and rectangles. Broadway Boogie Woogie and Victory Boogie Woogie.
Yeah, I remember that.
Are his last work that he ever did was Victory Boogie Woogie, which is still unfinished because when you die, you don't finish things. That's not really meant to be funny, but...
Well, I mean, the way you said it was funny.
Yeah, I say a lot of funny things. That's true. Good point. Good point.
That's definitely not true.
You just said it was true.
Well, I said that particular thing, you were trying to be funny. I didn't say.
Okay.
So did I give my fake laugh or my real laugh?
That was your
fake laugh.
That's your real one. Your fake one is and your real one is like a siren going off.
Oh.
But anyway.
Anything else about him? He's very down to earth, logical.
Yeah, no,
straight lines, straightforward.
Are there other artists that we've talked about, you think, that... Because I think a lot of times, like, we just talk about the artist and whatever logic should come from the heart, which I don't know that we've really talked about logic coming from the heart, but
we haven't. We haven't because we got on...
Just Mondrian.
Well, I asked you what type of a person he was thinking about this card and his life statement saying logic should come from the heart.
We know how the conversation...
I mean, I could definitely get into that. I have these conversations with my clients every day about making decisions from the heart and not from the head. So I like him from that perspective. But,
I mean, there are lots of artists, I think, that use their heart. I would say that when you look at expressionism, whether you're looking at the root of expressionism, which would be like Vincent van Gogh, who we seem to talk about on the weekly, or the German expressionist, where they're bringing in like just their own feelings and emotions and putting that into their work, which, I've done a video on German expressionism.
I mean, isn't all art that, though? Putting you in your... No.
Not necessarily. I wouldn't say that Mondrian's work really deals with putting emotions into anything. I think it's just, this is what it is. Joseph Albers and his homage to Square series is just very,
so it's an idea.
Very academic in its idea and its presentation. Yeah. Donald Judd was also a minimalist, a geometric artist who does very simplified sculptural metal pieces a lot of times. He does other things, but very geometric. His work is not really... he has gone on the record as saying that his work isn't about him. His work is just the work. He just makes these things because they're interesting, not because it has anything to do with them.
Well, thinking about what I said, like inspiration comes from so many things, no matter what you're doing, and art isn't any different. I mean, it could be people, it could be places, it could be emotions, it could be, there's lots of things that are inspirational.
So, anyway, that's what I know of Mondrian and logic and the heart, and which isn't much, clearly.
Since you have no further input on Mondrian, I will go back to something that you said just a minute ago about the art not being about himself. Because when you said that, it made me think of the video that just dropped this past week on Paul Cézanne.
Paul Cézanne.
Which I think was the opposite. He was like all about himself in his art and really didn't care about how successful he was or who his art inspired or like caught their eye. He was just very much about himself.
For sure.
Because he came from a wealthy family and it wasn't about money for him, which that'd be nice.
Yeah, his parents were very well off, and that kind of allowed him the luxury of doing what he wanted to do. He didn't care about sales. He didn't care about a lot of different things. And this is the second video that has kind of touched on Cézanne in the past month or so. I did another one on pure artists, which focused more on Cézanne and Hank, my son Hank, where this video, again, obviously just focuses on Cézanne and his approach. And it's done very well.
The video?
Yeah, the video is done very, very well.
Your video? Are you giving kudos to yourself here?
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like it's done very well. Like I think people have really received the...
Oh, done very well. Like, I thought you meant, like what your work was done very well. Not, it's done very well with the art audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it was well put together, but I think that the Art 101 public has
liked it,
viewed it, and liked it, and shared it, and it's made some rounds. That, I mean, some videos they, I put them out and boom, you have 1,000 views in minutes, and it's like, what is going on? And then you have some, and it's like, this is gonna just explode, and you get, nothing.
So the one on Pure Artists did well, is what
the
you're saying.
one on Pure Artists did okay. The one on Cézanne has done very well.
Ah, okay, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, the one on Pure Artists has done. I mean, it didn't do poorly.
All right, so back to...
But to the point...
Yes, Cézanne.
He was an artist that didn't care what other people thought. He cared about, is this the art that I want to make? And if it wasn't, then he would go ballistic and destroy it. And he was maybe irrational about some of those sorts of things. And I can identify with that.
I mean, it almost seems like he's a little bit bipolar, because you talked about...
Yeah, perhaps.
We talk about that, and then in your video it talks about, like, Mary Cassatt, how she said he was, like, one of the most polite, well-spoken, whatever, people, and there's just, like, these extremes in how he acts and his art and his personality. Yeah,
he was very multi-personality type person. I mean, he was kind of conflicted in that way, and I think some artists really get that way. I think Jackson Pollock was this way, Cézanne was this way. I think sometimes I can be this way, where you look at your stuff and you're like, wow, that, like, I don't know that anybody could have done that better. Like, that is fantastic. Like, you're really up on your stuff, and you're like, man, I couldn't make a piece of artwork better than that. I think that this could go toe to toe with any piece of artwork.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you make another piece of artwork, and you're like, I'm a sham, I'm a fraud. There's who would ever buy my work? I'm clearly not very good. And you get down on yourself at the same time, and so I think that there are those people that are with huge egos that feel like every single thing they do is fantastic, And
Paul Cézanne was not one of those people.
Paul Cézanne was not one.
Even though he came across that way to most people.
I think he came across that way. He came across as kind of a brutish, sort of barbaric, sloppy, just...
Well, I was going to say, he kind of sounds like you, like, when you talk about yourself. And then now that you're saying barbaric and everything else. So, because you do come across that way. Look at you today.
What the hell does that mean?
Viking, you're just like the long hair and the sunglasses, and you want people to think you're a certain, but you actually are a pretty kind, compassionate person.
You're going to ruin my street credit.
Your street credit. He spent a lot of time, which I thought was interesting because it's one of your favorite places, I think, in the Louvre.
Yeah.
And
he would go there and he would do sketches and plans, which, again, a lot of people probably would not know that about him. A lot of artists did that at that time. That was very common. I think, the artist today probably gets their start by doing copies of superheroes or copies of artworks that they like, cartoons and things that they like, where he obviously as an artist of that time wasn't copying something like that from popular culture. He was going to the Louvre and painting or doing drawings of the paintings, which was an equivalent of the time, I suppose.
Well, that seems so odd to me so he wasn't going there for inspiration. He was going there for copying and working on his art.
He was going there like for the study, for the research, for the practice.
It's just copying stuff, though. You're not really
right. But sometimes through copying, we learn how to assemble things. We do that practice of doing. And I guess I don't know a really good equivalent other than, when you first are learning a sport, you go through that routine, do it over and over and over again, that muscle memory of doing it over and over and over again. Like when you're teaching little kids wrestling, at first it's just like chaos. But then you get
repetition.
Repetition. You get them to go from kind of being all over the place and not really having control of what their body is doing to really, okay, now you have control of your body. Now we can do this. Now you can do this. But it's that, that fine tuning of things. Like just this week in one of my art classes, I was working with a student on painting, and they were doing a watercolor painting, and it was really well drawn and everything was really well planned. But then when they started getting into the watercolor of it, they had loaded the brush a little bit heavy with water, and they were a little heavy-handed with the brush, and so then it was like you're tearing up the paper. Well, why is this paper getting torn up? Well, here's some things. Let's fix it. Let's correct it. And then it's, okay, let's go a little bit lighter with your hand. And they thought I was just teasing them. Like they didn't know how to paint. I'm like, no, like this is why this is happening.
Yeah.
And when they saw the result of what I was talking about, oh, wow, that really does make a difference. Yeah, using your whole brush versus getting just the tip and having that glide across the paper is two different things. And it's those little techniques that you don't learn or pick up without practice, without study, without an instruction, or without lots and lots and lots of repetition to figure out what it is that you want to do. Fortunately, Paul Cézanne had a really great teacher in Camille Pissarro, who was I like to call him the Yoda Jedi master of Impressionist painting.
Yeah.
And he was really phenomenal. And he was a great leader. He was a great motivator. He was very good at instructing and supporting others, especially in this case, Cézanne. Cézanne would not have been as successful without Pissarro's wisdom and guidance. But
so speaking of being a good teacher and learning, I actually am going to move into Journey into Your Archives because the video...
It's not Journey into Your Archives. It's Journey into the Archives.
Well, it is your archives. Journey into the Archives.
Journey into the Archives is the name of the segment. You're going to confuse all of the folks if you keep changing the title of it.
Journey into the Archives.
Perfect.
The video that I went into was from 15 years ago.
Oh my God.
So I learned a lot. You have learned a lot since you started.
Talk about being
It was very interesting. If you want to see how far Mr. Burgher has came, go back and watch. The video is Manet versus Monet.
Okay.
And was this one of your very first videos?
I think this might be like number 3, number 4. It's early.
It is very early. Your
the clip. And again, it's been a long time since I've stomached through that thing. But what I can tell you is that I know that the clips. I shot it off an old computer that I just had a little camera on, and it was not very good quality camera. The audio was not good. I didn't have any editing software, so it was like I couldn't do voiceovers, so it was like clip, 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 clip. And I was always so frustrated because I wanted to talk over the artwork, but I couldn't figure out how to do that. So it's like, oh my gosh, like how do I? And it wasn't until I discovered the beauty of the iMovie on a Mac that I could finally put all of those things together and be like, okay, I can. And I haven't really moved too well beyond that. Like, I'm sure that there's really some slick video package where you could really do some cool transitions and I don't know, bells and whistles, but I don't do any of that. I just kind of keep with the same basic formula. But anyway, to the point, that thing, oh boy.
I think it's cool watching how you started and where you are now, because there's definitely, I mean, the biggest things I notice is, again, yeah, like just like you said, like the videography, you're chopping things off and you're cutting in and out, and his face literally, like, he's like up to the camera like this close, like even closer to that in the camera. It was quite funny. You have to go back and watch it, really.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say,
and I look like I was 20.
Well, you probably, how old were you?
Well,
we're gonna give away your age.
I don't know.
15 years ago.
Probably in my. Well, let me think.
Probably right in your 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Late 20s.
The content, like the information that you gave, I feel like was still just like you were very precise about what content.
Now here's what I can tell you. There are things that are in that are wrong.
Really? I was wondering.
Yeah, there's a couple things in there that are wrong, and if you read down in the description, like I do recall having conversations with people about it, because when the point of the videos was to help with my instruction, and I wanted to emphasize the point that Monet and Manet were of different times. They were contemporaries. They worked at the same style. They knew each other. But Manet was not an impressionist. And so a lot of times he is labeled as a realist. But at that time, I didn't teach a unit on the realists of that time. I didn't teach any of that. So as not to add confusion, I kind of lumped him in with the realistic, as a realistic romantic, but he's not. And so I believe that's what I had done. Whatever the case was, I know that I labeled Manet the wrong art movement for the simplicity of what I was teaching in my classroom.
And someone called you out on it?
And somebody called me out on it, and they were right for calling me out on it.
Right.
Because it's not technically correct, and so then I started thinking, okay, how do I make that right? And so then I'm like, well, instead of going from talking about the romantic artists into the impressionist artists, I got to talk about the realists. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do a little sliver of a unit on realists, and I'll talk about Courbet, and I'll talk about Manet, and I'll kind of lump them in together, and I'll talk about how Manet influenced but was not directly associated with the impressionists, and which is true. But
how did you take that criticism back then versus how you take it now on your videos?
Is that a loaded question?
No.
It seems like a loaded question.
No, I'm like, were you like?
No, I knew
I am right, and
no, I knew I was
bullshit, and
no, I knew I was wrong. I knew I was wrong when I did it. I just didn't want to add confusion to to the content that I was teaching, and so I just kind of was like, well, I just kind of lumped it together.
Which is really surprising, because you do not like when, you are very precise about, that surprises me.
And because I didn't talk about Courbet, I didn't talk about a lot of those realists, and so that's when I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a group of 4 or 5 of them, and I'll talk about those 4 or 5 in association together, so people get they get
video.
Yeah, so they get it to make it right. And so I changed the way I did business because of that comment. Because it was right. It was the right thing to do.
What are the differences between Manet versus Monet then?
Well, Manet is older than Monet. Monet is oftentimes considered the leader of the Impressionists. And when Monet first broke into the scene, Manet was pissed because he's like, why are you trying to take my name? Why are you trying to get credit, in the community of artists, by changing your name to sound like mine? And he's like, I didn't. This is my name. And so they started off being they hated each other. But in the end, Monet helped carry Manet's casket in his funeral, and so they became very, very good friends in the end. But started off kind of rivals, enemies, that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was an interesting video as far as the content, but that one's gonna that one's gonna score low.
Oh.
But it's obvious why it would. It's it's one of your first videos, so.
Now, I have noticed, I have done a little bit of back research on this, looking at the trends, and it looks like most of these, the videos that we've looked at, there's a lot that score 9s. Really? I thought that there wouldn't be as many, but there's a lot of 9s.
Really? There's
a lot of 7s. There's 9s, 7s, and a 5. You only score with odd numbers.
I am an odd, I even set my alarm in the morning on an odd number. I don't know why.
So you score on odd numbers, and the most common is a 9. And the first video that you ever viewed, you scored a 9, and you said, this might be an oddity. This might be...
Well, because I didn't want to build up your ego.
This might be unique, because I don't know that I'm going to score all of them this way, but this is going to get a 9.
I feel bad scoring this one so low, because it is what it is. It's how you started. It's you got to start somewhere, right? At least you were brave enough to try to take that on back when there wasn't all these editing pieces and tools.
I'm sure there were tools. I just didn't have them.
15 years ago, though? Maybe.
I just
not
didn't
great.
Have them. Anyway.
You definitely did not have them.
So what is the Nichole score of Monet?
You were not very well spoken back then. I will definitely say that's changed. Your video editing was awful. I just want to go back and watch it because it was so awful, and it makes me laugh. Your content was good. Okay, so I'm going to go off the beaten path and say it's... Because I don't want to give it a 3, because for where you were, I think you did well, so I'm going to give it a 4.
A 4? This is officially the lowest scoring video that you have looked at.
Well, and it's also your oldest video.
And I think you're being too kind. I think a 4 is honestly too generous. I think you're being too kind with it. I wouldn't give it a 4. But
I didn't want to give you the satisfaction of doing another odd number. So
I shouldn't have mentioned that until the end, because you would have probably said a 3. So we'll say it's a 3. Okay. Just because that's really where your heart was.
Yeah.
So we'll call it a 3.
Yes, but I do think it is cool to see, how far you came and how things have changed. And
at least it wasn't a 1.
Well, it's only because of the content, but you said the content was not good, so maybe it should be. If it's not accurate, which that still just surprises the hell out of me, because you're such a stickler for stuff like that.
There are...
I can't believe you released that knowing.
There are a lot of pieces that are in there that are... the vast majority of it is correct with the one exception. With the one exception. And I'd have to go back and watch it and show you exactly what I'm talking about, but I don't want to. I don't want to go back and watch that. Maybe someday we'll do a watch.
Maybe you should show some clips at the end of this or the beginning of this.
We could do. Yeah, we could splice in the old.
The ones where you're like.
Yeah.
Right up, like the camera like cuts his head off, like.
So we'll just for amusement, I'll do a little montage of. I'll do a little montage of it, just so people get a sense. I think
that's a good idea.
So here we go.
There's a lot of confusion between Monet and Manet. In this episode, we're going to look at these two friends and peers and hopefully get a little bit better idea of how they made their work. And hopefully be able to put that together with a couple other tidbits and facts and get a little bit better understanding between Monet and Manet. One of Manet's most important artworks was Luncheon on the Grass, made in 1863.
So, anything else? So your birthday's this week. Any other important or cool things happening?
There's lots of cool, important things happening.
Art-wise,
in my world and in the world today. I just don't want to talk about them today.
Okay, what about, historically?
Nope. I gotta talk about it.
Why?
Save it for the next one.
All right. Well, supposedly I'm the boss, but
when I'm done, I'm done.
All right. Well, then I guess we're done.
So
thanks for watching another episode of Art 101. We hope you like, share, subscribe, jump into the old archives and watch some of the videos. Maybe not the one we just talked about, but
no, go back and watch.
It'll give you a good laugh.
Make a comment on there, and so I
bring it back to life.
So I know you're bringing it back to life. So everybody's like, "Oh my God, what is this thing?" Well, even the framing doesn't fit the it's kind of like it's like a. I can't remember what the scale is. It's like 16:5 or 16:8 or there's some scale thing with your screen size.
Yes, the ratios.
It doesn't fit like it fits like a stock square television format. It's so old. That's the old archives of YouTube. You got to dive deep to get those cuts.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
Thankfully. All right. Well, thanks for watching. We're out.